Parvardigar Meher Baba Ki Jai. It's so good to be with all of you here. This is our first visit to Meher Mount, and I have to say it's the most peaceful, wonderful, so spiritual a surrounding. I can feel Baba everywhere around here. So very, very special. So thank you, Sam and Margaret, for inviting us and having us here. All right, so to begin, you know, I'm the daughter of Minoo Kharas, one of Baba's very intimate mandli, one of his circle of 120 disciples. So I'll take you first through his early life before he met Baba and all the unique circumstances and pitfalls and whatever he went through to get him to that point. And then after he meets Baba and his goal is accomplished, how Baba starts to train him because he is so intimately one of his mandli. So I'll refer to my notes heavily, which is what I used in the past at another talk that I gave in 2016. But in between, I will share pictures and I'll explain to you about those. All right? So my story in relation to beloved Baba begins with my father, Minoo Kharas, who was one of Baba's closest disciples. It is the story of the epic struggle of one soul to overcome the forces of karma, which could only be done successfully through the grace of a living master. To those of you who have not known of Minoo, let me begin by sharing his incredible journey to search for God, which began as far back as he could remember. As the story of his life unfolds, it becomes more than evident that all his experiences which were propelling him in his inevitable meeting with God. As a small child, he recalls, ever since memory first began, he experienced intense feelings and longing for God, wondering if God really existed, and if so, in what form and where, and why could he not see him and be with him? He was determined not only to find him, but to become one with him in this very lifetime. All these intense thoughts and feelings without anyone ever having talked a word about it to him. So where did all this come from, you wonder? His youth was a period of both elation and frustration, culminating in a determination to die by his own hand if his lifelong desire to see God face to face did not materialize. He remained convinced that one day in this very lifetime, he would ascend to the spiritual height required to find God. He was further convinced that God would, quote unquote, take me along with him unto him. As a child living with his elderly parents, who came from very humble background, he was badly neglected until his eldest sister took him in under her wing. She was married into a wealthy family. She felt her little brother was badly neglected. She took him in and took care of his education and his younger life. Under her care as a young scholar, he excelled in all areas of academia, sports, elocution, debating, and scouting. Nevertheless, she was a hard taskmaster who continually demanded the very best performance from him. And if he didn't deliver, was severely reprimanded. Therefore, at this tender age, he lacked the maternal nurturing which he craved for as a child, and which was a key factor that drove him away from her care eventually. As a young man, Minoo kept up his search for God, looking for him everywhere and in everything, and inquiring of those who he felt might be able to help him in his search and satisfy his longing, but to no avail. It all appeared to be a wild goose chase. Deeply frustrated, he even turned to nature himself and took himself out into the open fields and seashore and so forth, where he found himself talking to God as if up in the firmament, right? And he felt blissfully happy doing this. This soon became a habit, and along with his deep conviction, he was certain that one day in this very lifetime, God would appear to him in human form. Now, running parallel to this intense longing for God, Minoo was also in the grip of the usual common pull of lust, which assails most young people and which, in his case, went largely unchecked, so that the devil had a free hand. The dreadful habit of self abuse continued unabated for a number of years, and soon all his outstanding qualities and intelligence were negatively affected. Without the proper guidance, he seemed a lost soul. To further complicate matters, he also found himself in all innocence declaring his love one day as a very young child, 7 years old, to a relative lady in the family. Okay, so she reciprocated by nurturing him as one of her own, and soon the bond became a deep and lasting relationship. Needless to say, this remained unaffected. This remained unaffected by any negative repercussions, and his love for this relative lady grew in fervor and intensity. The family, of course, obviously were very upset by this, were very confused, but it didn't deter him, and neither did it deter her. She was like an older married person. It defied all human comprehension. Thus, we see this amazing tug of war between the intense search for God on one hand and the equally strong pull of lust, love feeling on the other. To add another aspect to the realm of lust and physical love, Minoo states that as a child, on more than one occasions, an unnatural physical offense was attempted on him by more than one person. But in spite of these disturbing episodes, he always felt he was protected by some invisible, supernatural power. With this background, one can only imagine the conflicting emotions and frustrations which were surging through him, but which eventually propelled him onward, and together with a series of unforeseen circumstances, brought him to the threshold of his beloved God. Minoo had 4 friends who were also spiritually inclined, and together they made a pact to search for God, each taking a different direction. And should any one of them find God, they were to inform the others. Okay. Minoo's ardent search for God led him down many different paths, including visiting holy shrines, temples, churches, mosques, and crossing paths with various sages, saints, sadhus, and yogis. And you know those abound in India, right? But none of this brought him any closer to finding his own God. His faith and determination remained strong, however, until one day when a man who displayed wonderful occult and psychic powers attempted to commit an unnatural offense on him, and he finally managed to escape after a fearsome struggle. This episode so disillusioned him that he vowed to make one last attempt, and if he failed, was committed to ending his life by his own hand. He was convinced that if God were indeed only hiding and was who he said he was, he would himself come to his rescue and spare his life. Otherwise, his life would end on a hilltop on the outskirts of the city. So a clear note was sounded to God, and on the appointed day, without informing anyone, he quietly slipped away to that location. Either his life would end, or by some miracle, he would be saved. Midnight was the appointed hour, and Minoo fully expected and was ready for the former outcome. However, most miraculously and unexpectedly, one of his 4 spiritual friends came running up that hill and found him at the last moment. His friend stated that he had been instructed by a yogi of a high order to find Minoo and bring him. Even though this yogi had not found God himself, he would be instrumental in leading Minoo further in his search. Pleasantly surprised, Minoo found he recognized this elderly yogi who lived near the graveyards as being a teacher at his old school. He also discovered that he had been under the protection of this yogi, who in one of his nightly samadhis or deep meditations, had seen the impending tragedy to befall Minoo and had tactfully but forcefully sent his friend to find Minoo and had guided him inwardly to the exact spot. This, I think, is one of the many unusual circumstances that shaped Minoo's destiny. Minoo kept in close association with the old yogi whose name was Master Ram Sundar Pandey and felt blissfully happy in his company. The yogi said he had found a quote unquote great soul in Minoo, whose last few lives had been unnecessarily lost. He would insist on Minoo performing japa, which is silent recitation of certain mantras, which the yogi said would protect him from things like dangers like gunshot wounds and snake bites. He also gave Minoo a sacred thread which Minoo was to keep on his person and which would further protect him from all evil forces and save his life, cautioning Minoo not to take any of this lightly. Minoo mutely obeyed the yogi, although not fully understanding why, but felt instinctively that there was some supernatural power guiding him in his quest. He had also been a scholar of books on spirituality, and one day was overjoyed to discover in one called Kabir Vani by the acclaimed poet and perfect master Kabir Sahib that God does appear in human form during certain spiritual periods. At last he had found God, if only yet in a book. This finding fit like a glove when he further discovered that this was one of those times. During this period, another curious thing happened. Suddenly, in the course of one day, Minoo set about collecting images of all the previous prophets of history. Okay, beginning with Zoroaster, Ram, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus. And he had all, and then the last one was his mentor or his ideal at that time in life, who was at that time the mayor of Karachi. He was a Parsi gentleman by the name of Jamshed Nasarwanji Mehta, and my father looked up to him in a big way. So he collected all these pictures and he had them framed. And what he did was he mounted them at the head of his bed. And he called this the ladder of ascent, starting with his ideal at the bottom and going in reverse chronological order up to Zoroaster at the top. Okay. And one day he was convinced that he would rise to the required height to find God. This curious event also played a significant part in his quest, as we will see. Then one day this old yogi told him he would soon be doing parade, quote unquote parade. This did not make any sense to Minoo, who was working as an insurance clerk at the time. But this prediction soon came true as Minoo found himself bound for training as a student at the Central Police School in Nasik. When departing Karachi by ship, the old yogi came to see him off at the docks, garlanding Minoo and bowing down to him. How very strange, thought Minoo. Pandey then told him that in Nasik he would encounter a very holy man in a certain direction from the school, and that Minoo should not leave him at any cost. Little did he know how important this prediction would prove to be. Two events which occurred consecutively upon his arrival at the police training school in Nasik illustrate the importance of Minoo's association with the yogi Pandey, and further prove it was divinely orchestrated. On the very first evening of his arrival, around sunset, he walked out into the fields a little distance from the school to have his usual talk with God in nature, and was sitting on a boundary-marked stone. At the same time, one of the officers of the school was trying out a new gun at a good distance, and thinking Minoo to be a good target, began unwittingly firing in his direction. Some servants of the school, including a barber, witnessed this near catastrophe and immediately ran to him in a panic, but found miraculously he was unharmed. Minoo wondered if the mantras he had been repeatedly assigned by the yogi had indeed protected him from gunfire. The next morning, that same barber, upon entering Minoo's room in his usual rounds to attend to the needs of the students, recognized him from the previous evening and noticed that ladder of ascent on the wall behind his bed. Observing Minoo to be spiritually minded, thought he would be a total misfit at the school, and instead, raising his hand and pointing in a certain direction, suggested to him that he go and see a certain holy man who was residing at the Circle Cinema on Bombay Agra Road. Upon hearing this, Minoo remembered with a shock the prediction of the old man Pandey. He was further shocked to know the identity of this holy man as Meher Baba, as he remembered coming across that name several years back. It so happened that during his school matriculation exam, while staying at his aunt's house, he had come across a magazine called Hindi Graphic, which was placed in the lavatory as toilet paper. And on the cover of this magazine was a photo of a holy man, right, with the caption, His Holiness Sri Meher Baba. This was in 1928. And it was during this period that Minoo was at the height of his frustration, considering all so-called saints, sages, and holy men as nothing short of cheats and rogues. Even so, he did not appreciate the idea of the photo of a man said to be holy to be kept in the toilet. So he tore off the cover of the photo and kept it in a folded sheet of blotting paper and promptly forgot about it. The next day, on his way to the examination, he realized he had forgotten to wear his kasti, which is the sacred thread every Zoroastrian wears when he's a young person initiated into the religion. So he had to zealously do that every day as a Zoroastrian. During the exam, a curious thing happened when a small piece of paper slipped off his desk to the floor, and out of it fell the photo of Meher Baba. Thus, this Meher Baba had accompanied him to the exam, while with all his zeal of a religious Zoroastrian, he had forgotten to wear his kasti. A second incident occurred while playing a game of billiards with some friends, when out of the blue, one of them mentioned the name Meher Baba, who had stopped in Karachi on his way to Bombay from Iran. Minoo wanted to immediately rush off to meet him at the docks, but was told he had already sailed. Reflecting on these recollections from the past, and now coupled with the prediction of the yogi and the information of the close proximity of Meher Baba, as informed by the barber, Minoo was determined to go and see this man, Meher Baba, face to face. So Minoo writes, January 17, 1932 was the happiest day of my life. Like a warrior of old, setting out fully armed to fight for his country, he set out fully armed for his holy expedition. He dressed himself in his usual white garments, with a locket containing a small photo of Zoroaster around his neck, the red holy thread given by the yogi in his inside pocket, and a sandalwood mala, which is a religious rosary, for prayers. Thus he felt secure and fully prepared. Upon arrival at the compound that Sunday morning, he was met by 3 disciples, Ramju, a Muslim, Vishnu, a Hindu, and Darachanji, a Zoroastrian, one after the other. When asked who he was and the purpose of his visit, to each he replied, I am a pagal. Pagal means a mad person in Indian, right? I am a pagal, come from Karachi to meet a similar type of elder pagal who I believe is residing here. Although he realized that these words sounded idiotic to them, he felt convinced that they would internally convey to Meher Baba, if he was really holy, the silent and hungry heartbeats of a true seeker. Within minutes, the man called Meher Baba suddenly came out and stood just a few feet away. Minoo notes, quote, he appeared young, strongly built, strikingly handsome, and clean shaven. His lovely hair flowed down to his shoulders. His mustache was full. His eyes were fascinating. And above all, he had a broad, charming, unforgettable smile on his radiant face. He wore a long white, okay, I think we can move up to the pictures now. Yeah. So this is my father with Baba in the later years, but it's in the back of the book, so that's why we chose it. So these few pictures as we go forward will show you exactly how Baba looked at the time that Minoo saw him. Next one. Yeah, this is exactly how he was. Okay, so he had a long white robe-like garment with a hip-length collared coat, which Baba usually wore a coat over his sadra. So this was the closest picture we could find of the time when he had the hair open and so forth. That he was holding a small wooden board, which is in his hand. Right? Okay. Then and there, Minoo felt a voice deep inside saying, "Minoo, here is God whom you have been searching for." From that moment of spontaneous joy and bliss, Minoo knew his search had ended. Calling him into a room while seated on a mat on the floor with the disciple Chanji on his right, Baba asked Minoo what he wanted. Now, Baba, of course, was keeping silence at the time. While keeping perfectly silent and fixing his gaze on Baba, Minoo addressed him from within, similarly silent, emptying out all his pent-up frustrations while telling Baba that if indeed he was who he said he was, he would know all this and be able to satisfy his inner cravings. Astonishingly, now this was a silent exchange, mind you, almost like telepathy. So Dad would explain to me, he said, when I was venting out all my frustrations, I would think something negative and Baba would go, mm-mm-mm-mm. And then while he said something positive, Baba would beam and nod his head. Okay, so this was a silent exchange between the two of them. Okay. So, astonishingly, using his alphabet board and via his disciple Chanji, Baba said, quote unquote, "I have heard you completely. It is since your birth that this instinct is there within you. Do not worry. Do as I say. Forget I. Every night, go to sleep in thoughts of me." Then began the verbal dialogue where Minoo unburdened himself with all the good and bad that he had experienced thus far since memory began and his long search for God. He fearlessly told Baba about meeting the old yogi and showed him a picture, then began disarming himself of all his spiritual paraphernalia, confessing to all these childish things. Immediately Baba replied, "This is not childish. It is this that has brought you to me." He further stated, "You are connected with me since past lives. I have to repay the debt I owe you. Not only you love me, but I love you." That was the initial conversation. At the end of this momentous meeting, Minoo left with feelings that were indescribable. You can go to the next few pictures. Now, these are my favorite pictures of Baba. This is when Baba was in Portofino in 1932 and staying at the Villa Alta Chiara, which we just saw just a month ago. Yay! So, okay, we'll stop over there.
Excuse me, Minoo, how old was your father when you met in 1932?
He was in his late 20s. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, feel free to jump in and ask me if you want to clarify anything. He was totally convinced he had at last found his very own God and the Savior and Messiah that the world desperately needed. He realized all his efforts to this day had not been in vain, and the true significance of all experiences to this point. he found himself recalling incidents from his childhood which seemed previously inexplicable to him. For instance, when he was a young child, the old African watchman who guarded the house at night told him that around midnight, when he was fast asleep, God often came and sat beside his bed and actually caressed him. The watchman vividly described the appearance and dress of this being he felt to be God in human form. The description exactly matched that of Baba during his first meeting in Nasik. Furthermore, he learned years later that Baba was actually present in Karachi at that time and was staying only a few houses away. He also recollected that when visiting certain sages or holy ones as a child, as when he was in the presence of the renowned theosophist Krishnamurti, the sage looked at him with great reverence and took hold of his hands and placed them on his eyes and kissed him, then placing his hand on Minoo's head with tears running down his face. Yeah. Without a doubt, all these experiences and his entire life to this point had been a prelude of events and circumstances that brought Minoo to the feet of his master. He was blissfully happy that from here on through eternity, he would have his own God with him every step of the way. But this was only the beginning, and Minoo realized he had a long way to go yet to know Baba as he really is, to experience his ways and learn to obey him 100%, if he hoped to earn his grace in order to overcome all the obstacles in his path. So after this initial meeting with Baba, Minoo could not keep away from him and would avail of every opportunity to be in Baba's presence, even going as far as defying school regulations, which were very strict. But somehow, again, in spite of his truant behavior, he somehow or other escaped being caught in the act and being subsequently punished. This would be pointed out by Baba while enjoying his company, when Baba suddenly would turn to Minoo and ask him why he was here at such an odd hour. Perhaps Minoo thought this was to let him know that he was under Baba's protection. During this time, Baba asked Minoo if he would obey him, and Minoo replied, "Certainly." Baba then gave Minoo his first order to read well, then adding, quote, "When I feel in the twinkling of an eye, I shall lift you up. Don't worry. I promise you I take your responsibility." Unquote. Thus far, Baba had not directly addressed Minoo's consuming lust problem. But on the occasion of his 38th birthday, which is this picture right there, and you can see my dad right behind Baba, poking his head out like this. That's Minoo. Okay. But on the... Yes?
Is that woman sitting, is that anyone related to Mara?
Yes, that's Mera's sister, Franny.
Franny.
Yes,
Okay,
that's Mera's sister, correct. And then there's Baba's mother, just to the right of my father. Yeah. And on, let's see, and then to a little bit to Dad's left, after this gentleman in the back, is Gulmai, who is Adi Senior's mother. And then a few of the Western disciples, I believe that was either Delia or Minta, I'm not sure, Delia, I believe. And then Gulmai, who is, sorry, not Gulmai, I forget who that is. Gaimai? No. Gaimai was much young. Oh no, that was Mera's mother, Daulatmai.
Oh, okay.
Daulatmai, yes.
Goher, who's the fellow on the left, the handsome guy?
Handsome. Oh, the one over here?
Yes.
I have no idea.
Oh, I thought maybe it might be one of Papa's brothers.
No, that's not one of his brothers. No.
Baba's mother, Shireen, is there too.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah, she's to the right of my father. Yeah. So, anyway, so this was his 38th birthday, which included a small darshan program. Baba openly referred to the subject when in front of all gathered. This was about Dad's problem. Baba said, quote, "He is perfect from top to toe, but his eyes are very bad." This open hint opened the door to future direct guidance by the Master, who helps each one eliminate the blocks to perfection. Minoo's training had begun in earnest, and along the way he learned many new lessons, such as implicit obedience. Once, after inadvertently and in good faith disobeying a wish of the beloved, Baba ordered him to go away in front of all. Minoo was crushed by this sudden rejection, not understanding the reason for his dismissal, and inwardly begged his forgiveness. When called back some time later, he realized his mistake in not obeying Baba when told to go and have his lunch at a certain time. Minoo now knew that even the smallest wish was significant when it came to obeying the Master. Baba lovingly forgave him, admonishing him at the same time to never disobey him again. During his stay in Nasik, Minoo had the privilege to be in Baba's company often as part of the mandli, taking part in games such as marbles, cricket, carom, ping pong, and cards. But this was also a period of suffering for Minoo, who was deeply agonized at certain intervals when Baba was touring in the West or away for other reasons. He couldn't stand to be separated. Now that he had met Baba, he wanted to be in his presence every minute he possibly could. Okay. So he was also suffering at the same time physically from bouts of acute appendicitis. Baba would sometimes give him a mixture of lime juice and ice cream. Yum, yum. Or even once he gave him a whole raw lemon to eat. Yeah, which Minoo consumed entirely, skin, seeds, and all. Okay. Baba also advised him to seek immediate treatment at once from the doctor at the school. At times when Minoo completely broke down, being overwhelmed between his physical and spiritual agony he was suffering, Baba would gently caress him like a mother would her child, saying, "Don't worry, you are exceptionally lucky to be so dearly loving me. Leave everything to me, I am doing my best." Baba then instructed Minoo to return to Karachi immediately, where his presence was essentially required. Minoo felt finally had his appendectomy while Baba was away on another trip to the West. Also during this time, his lady friend, remember the elderly lady who he had proclaimed his love to when he was so young, she was undergoing a health crisis as well, which no one had informed him about. He then realized the importance of Baba's order to go there without delay. In the ensuing months, they both suffered great periods of agony physically, with physical illness. Yet each kept the other uplifted throughout these trying times, with Minoo leaving the end result in his beloved's hands in total surrender. When Minoo returned to Nasik in early 1933, Baba began integrating him into the mandli and gave him the assignment of contacting the former mayor of Karachi, who had also been his mentor and Minoo's ideal. At this time, Minoo was also struggling with feelings of anxiety at being separated from Baba, thinking that even if he passed his exams, he would have to leave Nasik and Baba. But Baba reassured him all would be well even after he got a job, which he would be able to leave when Baba called him. More importantly, he gave Minoo a master key pertaining to his lust problem, telling him, quote, "Today I am giving you a master key, which note carefully. He who always loves is in me, but he who engages in lust keeps away from me. Be very, very careful. If you really desire to be near and with me, avoid lust. As soon as you are dragged heavily by lust, close your eyes and try to concentrate on the root of the nose between the two eyes and think of me. Do not do this for a long time." Unquote. He further said, quote, "Love lifts a man up while passion or lust drags him down." Drags him down. Okay. Do not worry for being lifted up by love. Worry for being pulled down by lust. It follows that if you are not pulled down, you will automatically be pulled up. Baba also said this struggle was an eternal one, and one could hardly escape it on one's own unless he had the hand of a living master on his head to free him from it. But when Minoo protested, saying how yogis of a high order had failed in this respect, what hope did he have to overcome it? To which Baba replied that he had to make the initial effort. Okay, he had to make, and then be worthy of his grace. Okay, so now I'm going to jump on to add something from the God Seeker.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I remember this wasn't clear when you first told the story before. Did your father, was it a romantic thing with this older woman, or was it a friendship that was with deep love? And does
Okay.
anybody have the answer?
No. Okay, I'll tell you. So as a child, because he had missed being nurtured and had no maternal nurturing, and this lady was so welcoming into her family, and she had 3 sons of her own. And I can share now, with permission from Mirwan, I guess. This was Adi's mother, Adi Dubash, right, who was a sister-in-law to my dad's older sister, who had taken him in as a young child. So these 2 ladies were sisters-in-law married to 2 brothers. Okay, so they were all in the family, and so it was an ongoing, exchange of family, whatever. So Minoo was very familiar with her family, and she was very welcoming. So it was a maternal thing to begin with as a young child, but as he grew older, this love was so strong between both of them. And Baba even said that this goes way, way, way back. You are connected from lives from before, and this connection has been there all along. So so it was a mingling of physical whatever as he grew older, which sort of threw the family into a tizzy for a while, whatever. But in later years, it turned out, it just reversed itself from being anything to do with physical to just being a very deep and caring relationship. And he took care of her all throughout her life. And the family knew, everybody knew this intense bond between the 2 of them, but Baba said, don't worry about it, I will take care of it. So, yeah.
Did she remain married?
Oh yeah, her husband was very indifferent to Baba all his life. He was nowhere near Baba. It was only her and Adi Dubash out of even his 2 other brothers. Nobody else in the family came to Baba except for Adi and his mother. Yeah. So I will read you another little something to go along with. All right, so because so around this time, Dad says, I informed Baba of my left eye fluttering for some time and told him, already 2 have died, and my sister Suna is dying in Karachi. Suna was the sister that had taken him in. She was his older sister. He said, do not worry, even if 2,000 die. This is merely the changing of a coat. No one understands all about it, and you yourself will not die now. Minoo was afraid that something was going to happen to him, whatever. So you yourself will not die now, for you have a lot to do yet, to do with me. You will hear me talk, do many things for me, and finally rise with me. Whatever that means. So I thought that was pertinent, so I added that from the book. Okay, so now we come to March of 1933. Minoo was present at the wedding of Baba's brother Behram. And after speaking a few words spontaneously on the occasion, Baba asked him to say a few words at that wedding ceremony, which Minoo did spontaneously. Baba enjoyed and appreciated it very much. Now we go to the next picture. Let's see. Okay, this is also the same birthdays. Okay, stop here. Okay. So after Minoo gave his talk at this wedding, right, which Baba appreciated very much, Baba presented Minoo with his alphabet board. And Minoo gave the one he had made, which he used to use during times of observing silence, to Baba. So they exchanged alphabet boards. This precious token, the one above with the little chip on the top that you see, okay, this precious token remains with me and is one of my treasured possessions. Yeah. The second board came to me many years later after my brother had passed away. His wife sent it to me, and somehow I don't know the history of the second board, but it somehow ended up in his dad must have given it to him. I don't know where this board came from, but so she sent it to me, and so I have two of Baba's boards now with me. How lucky am I? So yeah. All right. So we went through that. Okay. After passing his final exams at the police training school in Nasik, Minoo was appointed the job of sub-inspector of police in Karachi and was ordered by Baba to accept the position. There would now be a gap of 4 years when Minoo had no physical contact with Baba, but would remain connected via letters from the Mandli and sometimes even from Baba. Finally, he received a letter from Adi Sr., Baba's secretary, informing him of Baba's wish that he be present at his birthday celebration to be held on February 17th in 1937. And we just saw those pictures, so sorry they've been reversed. Overjoyed to attend this auspicious occasion, Minoo was witness to more than 10,000 who were present, and these were the poor to whom Baba distributed cloth, sweetmeats, and grain, and touched their feet. Minoo was sent with some Mandli member to the Mast ashram in Rahuri, where he observed the different types of musts or God-intoxicated souls and their peculiar habits. Switch. I think it's, yeah, there's Muhammad. So, this was another important phase in his advent this time around, and of the beloved, and Minoo was to participate in this work as he would soon discover. As a close member of Baba's intimate circle of 120 disciples, Minoo was privileged to participate in many fasts and periods of meditation on the beloved, which was assigned to them as a way of helping the Master with his world work for humanity, especially during the dark years of World War II. Okay, so now I'm going to share another story that took place around this. So Minoo was separated, right, for 4 years. So he was in agony about being away from Baba. So at one point, he accosted Dr. Ghani. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was one of Baba's Mandli as well. And this is what he did. So another time when Minoo was unable to be present at Mehrabad, he tried to get darshan by proxy. I had asked Dr. Ghani, who would be there, to promise that after first bowing down to Baba for himself, he would once more bow on my behalf without mentioning a word about it to anyone, including Baba. I explained to the doctor that I would be there mentally, and Baba was sure to know it. Later, Dr. Ghani repeated to me the outcome of my request. When he put his head on Baba's feet for a second time, as promised, and began to rise, Baba stopped him, shaking his head and saying, "No." Baba then asked Dr. Ghani to put his head properly and truly at his feet, as you promised to someone. Dr. Ghani tried again and again, and Baba said, "No." This went on for some time, and Dr. Ghani was exhausted, and those watching were completely baffled. Baba finally told Dr. Ghani that when such an act is promised to another person, it must be performed precisely as that person would perform it, not just haphazardly. Dr. Ghani made one last effort, placing his head exactly as he thought I would have done. But again, he was rebuffed by Baba. Finally, Baba smiled and accepted the obeisance, explaining to the Mandli the futility of having another person pray or bow or worship on your behalf. Each lover, his love and his way of expressing that love are unique. So that was one story from that time. Okay, so now we come to June of 1947. How are we doing on? Oh, we're good. Okay. Okay, in June of 1947, Baba gave Minoo and some other Mandli members the mission of trying to find musts in their own district and bring them to the newly founded must ashram in Satara. Never having undertaken such a daunting task previously, Minoo was naturally quite anxious, but eventually, being determined to fulfill Baba's wish, he managed the laborious and challenging undertaking. And in spite of numerous hurdles and complications, you know how these musts are with their unique habits and their, spontaneous just getting up and walking away or going to the bathroom wherever they are. It was very challenging. So, yeah. So anyway, Minoo, but he was determined to do this. Okay. Baba was immensely pleased with the work done, and as it turned out, Minoo was the only one of 3 Mandli members that were asked to perform this work to do so successfully. Now, from Karachi to Nasik is a long distance. It takes a long, long train journey via Bombay and all these other places, but he was able to accomplish that. After staying for 2 days, Baba asked Minoo to take the musts back to the old surroundings in Karachi. Baba then hugged Minoo and told him again, quote, "You are one of my most intimate Mandli." I remember when Irwin and Edward Luck had stopped at our place in Karachi back in 1971, I believe. Dad had taken them. Irwin was filming many people that had known Baba and their lives with Baba. So he had taken him to this area in Karachi where this one must that he had brought to Baba was still there. And Irwin has that recorded on film, so which is very interesting. So, and if you catch that video, it's on YouTube somewhere in Irwin's his series of videos that he has, and you'll see a very young Goher standing there as well. So, during 1947, while trying to organize a Baba group in Karachi, Minoo met Kekashru Patel and his family, one of whom was his daughter, Freni. They soon developed a friendship that blossomed into a deeper relationship, and eventually, with Baba's permission, now mind you, this was late 1940s, 47, 48. Okay, Minoo was considered to be a bachelor or in the family. He was not. He was at a ripe old. He was in his probably late 30s, early 40s by then, and he was considered to be a bachelor. He's not going to marry. So anyway, the friendship developed, and then Minoo finally, with Baba's permission, and emphasizing his wish 3 times that they marry, they finally tied the knot in February 1954. At first, Minoo's involvement with Freni caused much friction in his relationship with his lady friend, who was openly rebellious at the intrusion of this young interloper. But yeah, so she also, you see, there was this very passionate, strong bond between the two of them. But over time and after the marriage, she eventually accepted the union, and life was harmonious then. In December of that year, okay, we'll go down to the next picture. Let's see, that's another must picture. That's my mom garlanding Baba. When she first met him in probably 47 or 48, one of those 2 years, okay. She's taking Baba's darshan. Next picture. Let's see if we...
Sorry, Goher, your mom,
Yes.
her father was Baba's.
No, her father was Kekashru Patel. He also resided in Karachi. And my grandfather came into Baba's orbit because he knew Pilamai, who was living in Karachi as well. Pilamai was, according to Baba, his spiritual sister. Yeah. So spiritual mother was Gulmai, who was Adi Senior's mom, and Pilamai, who lived in Karachi, was known as Baba's spiritual sister. So my grandfather Kekashru knew her and hence came to know of Baba. And so when Dad also came to know of Baba and knew that Pilamai was in Karachi, that's how that connection was made, right?
Did Baba have to say what that meant?
What?
That his spiritual sister. Did you
I-
ever say anything about what that meant?
I could not tell you that. It's not that they were right. Probably this is my take on it from connection from previous lives of so many births and whatnot, but yeah, exactly what that means eludes me. Only Baba knows. So, but he did say that each avatar, when he manifests, always has a spiritual mother and a spiritual sister. So that he has said.
But
So
not spiritual brother.
no, I've not heard that. I haven't heard that. Yeah, yeah. So that was that, and they get married. So eventually she accepted the union. Life was okay. In December of that year, okay, hold on. In December of that year, yours truly made my debut into the family. And as with every event in his life, Minoo right away sent off a cable to Baba informing him of my birth and requesting him to name me. At the time, Baba was in strict seclusion. Therefore, all the mail was collectively put aside. Hence, I was nameless for a period of 5 months. Okay. Oh, yes. My birth certificate said Baby Kharas. That was it. My maternal grandparents were naturally concerned and upset, especially my grandmother, who was very feisty. But Minoo stuck to his guns. They were like, "What is this craziness? Are you not going to name this child or what?" And they had picked a nickname for. They already had a nickname for me, but no name yet. But Minoo stuck to his guns and just waited patiently in complete trust and serenity. Finally, in April of 1955, due to a tragic accident, when news reached Baba regarding the sad demise of Adi and Rhoda Dubash's young son, Homi, who had fallen from a second-story window and died of head trauma. He was only 4 years old. So there's Mirwan, who's still there in Canada and who was here last year. This is Mirwan's younger brother. Now, the only stipulation Baba had at the time that during his seclusion, if there was any news of any close disciples passing, that news had to be brought to him right away. So when news of Homi's death reached Baba in Satara, he was in Satara at the time, he came out briefly from seclusion and all the collected mail was brought to his attention, one of them being my father's telegram. So Baba said, okay. So Baba called the women mandli and he lined them up in front of him and said, first pointing to Mera, he said, now there are too many Meras, meaning I've given your name too many times to those around me. Next was money. He said, too many monies. And third in line was my sweet namesake, Dr. Goher. And so he looked at her and he said, what do you think? Should we send your name? And Dr. Goher said, Baba, your wish? So Baba said, done. So be it. Okay. Hence that day, April 21st, 1955, Baba had Erich write and inform Minoo that, quote unquote, today Baba has named your daughter Goher. And into inverted commas, into inverted parentheses, you will see the word jewel. The word Goher in the Persian language means jewel. Yeah. I looked it up once trying to find out what it authentically meant, and it said it was the name of a pearl found in the deepest part of the ocean. So anyway, another treasured relic that I cherish. This letter is obviously kept very, very carefully. Almost 6 years later, my brother was born in November of 1960. And somehow the news had already reached Baba, who immediately sent a postcard naming him Meherji. So we were Goher and Meherji. So, okay. My first physical meeting with beloved Baba. Now I come to myself, okay, a little bit, and I'll tell you what my little young journey was. So my first physical meeting with beloved Baba came in 1962 at the East-West gathering held in Pune. I was almost 8 years old at the time, and I distinctly recall the excitement building up in me at the thought that I would be meeting Baba in person, because you see, all my life I grew up in the home that was ours, and which was Baba's center in Karachi. So Minoo had started the Baba group in Karachi, and each room in our house, I can so distinctly picture it even to this day. It was like a Baba museum. I mean, pictures of Baba all over, nothing else, not even a calendar, nothing. So in the living room, we had pictures of Baba sitting, like, this, whatever. In the bedroom, Baba's reclining. There's one picture of his feet up. I've seen his Baba's foot picture, so that was there. I remember that. Then there was my room, which was an offshoot of my parents' bedroom, and it was just a little alcove, and it was filled with Baba's pictures, top to bottom, I mean. And this was known as Baba's room. So that was my bedroom. My brother slept along with my parents. And then in the dining room, Baba having tea, Baba eating, whatever. Those pictures were in the dining room, yeah. Oh, even in our bed, my father was such a Baba fanatic, as I call it. When we grew up and got out of our cribs and got into a normal bed, he had 2 beds made, like twin-size beds. And at the top of the bed and on the headboard, he had the carpenter carve a frame that could go right into the headboard. And in that frame, if you picked it up, was Baba's picture. So he was always there. Yeah. So anyway, so this, and every month we would have Baba meetings. Every 25th of the month was Baba's meeting. And we were a group of around 30 souls or so in Karachi that would gather. And we would start at 7 p.m. by saying his arti and the prayers. And then dad or somebody else would give a talk. There would be news from the Baba world, any news that came in. Or dad would talk on a certain topic. And then we would break and have some refreshments. And that happened every month. And I would so look forward to dad's sharing, because that's when I heard most of his stories of his life with Baba. And some of them really resonated with me as a young child to such an extent that it went to deepen my own faith in Baba as a child, So going to school and having other children around me, which, came from different religions, some Parsis, some non-Parsis. Some of them, had come to know that our family believed in Baba, who was still, there in person. And they're like, how could you believe a human being to be God? And, I would be kind of ridiculed sometimes. And I kept to myself and I said, you have no idea. So anyway, so that was, So now to actually go and see him physically, this was a huge deal in my little 8-year-old heart. So on November 1st, 1962, I found myself at the gates of Guru Prasad Palace among thousands who had come from all over India and the West to partake of this joyous event. I remember thinking to myself as I walked to the back of the compound that as I turn around, all I want to see is Baba. And sure enough, I don't know how I even realized where he would be seated or whatever, but I guess it was just, instinctual. And as I turned around, there he was in all his glory, beaming pure radiance on the stage. I was lost in a timeless moment. I don't know how long I stood there just watching Baba give darshan to thousands one by one, bowing down and touching his feet. I recall the intense heat and humidity, and then in the afternoon, all of a sudden, the skies opening up with a tremendous thunder shower and drenching all of us nearest to the stage. Now, all the Westerners had been put closer to the stage. So anyway, so Baba was concerned because, they be not being used to the Indian climate and then getting wet and drenched with all this rain. He instructed the Westerners and some of us Eastern women and children to be taken into the women Mandli's quarters and be given some dry clothing. Now, curiously, before they packed from Nagar to come to Pune this time, Baba had told the women Mandli to pack as much clothing as possible, to bring as many clothes as possible. And they couldn't understand why. Now they knew. Now they knew. So, so I found myself inside with the ladies, and Baba's sister Mani very sweetly gave me one of her dresses to change into. Subsequently, after we had returned home to Karachi, Mani sent me this dress as a memento of this auspicious day, which is yet another one of my treasured possessions. So, after Baba named me, right, this was in April of 55, Dad had gone to another meeting which was held in September of that year, September 1955, I believe. So he had taken this photo, and I was about 6 months old at the time. And when he met Baba, he introduced me to Baba, saying, "This is Goher." Baba took this picture in his hand, and he rocked me back and forth. So, yeah. So this picture is very precious, yeah, to me. So go to the next one. Okay, this is one of the, I think this is the Wadia Park event, where you can see my father sitting behind Baba on top of the car, holding the umbrella. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, this is Guru Prasad, where I first saw him. And that's also Guru Prasad, Baba's picture. Okay, stop there. So this is the dress that Mani had given me. And now it's, just preserved, of course. I don't know if I...
For a little girl.
I'm sorry?
It's perfect.
For a little girl, yes. But, at the time it was so long, and I was only three feet high. So Mani tied a ribbon. She sort of bunched it up over here, and she tied a ribbon so that I wouldn't trip on it, And so the dress is pink and with white dots, and then the ribbon she used was a sky blue ribbon. So I still have that, yeah. Go to the next one. I don't know if we have more. Yes. Okay, now, so at that time, of course, the dress didn't fit me, right? But years later, when we went to visit, this is in the 90s, I wore the dress because now it actually fit me. So I wore it, and there's Mani, and I'm telling her, and she was, yeah. So, yeah, that was very precious. So then Baba also called our Karachi group. He used to call different groups at that time sometimes in the afternoons to be with him, just, that group and Baba. So he would call our Karachi group on certain days for his darshan in the small side room. And I recall the first time standing in line with Dad and peeking out from the side to catch a glimpse of Baba as we proceeded, to take his darshan. Finally, it was my turn. And this was the first time I was directly in his presence. I kneeled and lay my head on his feet, touching my forehead on each one while gently holding them. So I was like, and I put my head on his left foot, and then his right foot, and then once in the middle. I still remember that. Yeah. And then holding his feet and never wanting to let go. When I finally stood up, I was in his loving embrace. Yet another timeless moment. The rest of the afternoon was spent sitting silently at his feet while he conversed with some, and I recall Dad whispering in my ear to keep my gaze on him and drink in every drop so that, quote unquote, this memory will last you a lifetime. Yeah. The next and last physical meeting I had with beloved Baba came in 1965, when he had called only some Eastern groups. This time, when I stood up after taking his darshan, he gestured, "How big you have grown." This was 3 years after, right? How big you have grown. When my brother Mirji, who was not yet 5 years old, bowed down to Baba, he just stayed there for a while, and had to be coerced to get up. He wouldn't get up. He just kept put his head down and he just stayed there. The ladies' Mandli, who had been observing this from behind the scenes, remarked how lucky he was. Yeah. So then we'll come to 1969, the Great Darshan. So our family also attended the last darshan in April of 1969 at Mehrabad, along with others from the Karachi group. Minoo was a volunteer guide once more, and I recall when he approached the hill at Mehrabad on the bus from Nagar, Minoo jumped up as soon as he saw, I can still picture this, I was in the bus with him, and as soon as he sighted that hill and he saw the Samadhi, he jumped up in the bus, Parvardigar, Meher Baba Ki Jai, 3 times. Yeah. So, and the rest were all Westerners that we had taken. We were housed under huge tents that had been set up in Lower Mehrabad for the duration of the darshan program. Thousands had once again journeyed from all corners of the globe to partake of this precious time at the feet of their beloved. Yeah.
Can you describe for us how Baba first hugged you? Was it like this? Was it like this? Did he pull you to his chest?
Gosh.
How was it?
Yeah. So first I bowed down, right? And first I stood there and looked at him straight in the face. Before bowing down, I just looked at him, he looked at me. And then I remember kneeling and bowing down, putting my feet on, my head on both of his feet. And then after I slowly rose up, he was like this. And then he just folded me in his embrace. And I remember because I was so short and Baba was, sitting, it was like I had to strain to be in his embrace because I was so tiny.
So then you couldn't get your head to his chest. You were too little.
He did hug me. He did hug me, and I probably touched the side of his face, if I remember correctly. I was that, but I was straining. I was wishing afterwards that I had just stepped to the side. If I'd done that, then I would really be able to hold him, tightly. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. So sorry, I didn't repeat that. So anyway. Yeah, any other questions?
Well, I was going to ask that question.
Yeah.
But then you met Baba again. Right?
Yes, twice. He's 62, so we saw him a couple of times, first outside with the masses of people, the 5,000 people or more, I don't remember. And then separately with our Karachi group that were there, like 30 of us, in that small side room. And that happened a few times, I think.
So you were a little older.
Yes, in 62 I was almost 8. This was November 1st, so for the 4 days. And then 65 when I was almost 11.
So what was that? Now
So-
you come back to see Baba.
Yes, thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be there again. I was so elated that, I'm seeing him again. And this time around, he sent us afterwards to meet the women Mandli outside on the veranda in Guru Prasad. And so Meera and all the other ladies were there. And this comes up later on in my mention. Anyway, so we were sitting there. I'm jumping the gun here. So Meera asked me to sing a song while we were there. And I was mortified because I was so shy. Oh my goodness, I was so shy. So what to sing? So all these thoughts are going through my head. But finally, I came across this last song that we had just learned in school, which was the Negro spiritual, what was it? Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Thank you. Yes. And it turned out that was one of Baba's favorite songs. So, yeah. So I sang.
You sang it by yourself?
Yes, by myself. I had to.
Like to sing it now.
Oh my gosh! I only remember the first few lines. I don't even remember the whole song, but it just. Okay.
It's up to you.
So it goes, swing low, sweet chariot, coming on to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me home. That's all I sang.
you coming here today, being here with us, is really a great gift from beloved Avatar Meher Baba. And it really makes us feel I believe, his presence with us here today. Thank you so much, dear Goher. And Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.